I want to do a quick video so everybody understands what the uniform resource locator, or URL, really is. And up here is what we refer to as the URL, and that's made up of some different parts. So first off, we have this little part right here, right? And this is what we call the port number, okay? So that's the port number right there. And again, in the previous video, we talked about that is often associated with a protocol, and the protocol is in this little area right here, and protocol. And that is, again, kind of think of it like speaking the same language, you're talking the same thing. And so those are often associated, and like we said before, HTTP is on port 80, HTTPS is on port 443, FTP is on port 21, FTPS is on, or SFTP is on 22, and different things. And so this little bit right here, .html, this is what we call the file extension. And just like you might have a JPEG file or a docx file or something like that, it really is just a file extension attached to the file. And so if we, that little thing right here, that would be our file then, right? And so literally this is a file sitting on, a computer, just like you would your own file manager, something like that. And right after it here, we have the, let me pull that off, we have the folder right there. And so that is a folder that just resides on a server somewhere and just sits there and just houses a bunch of stuff in it. So from there, let me do this. We have what we call like a .edu right here, and that is what we call a top level domain. And there's multiple kinds of top level domains. We'll talk about those here in a second. And then after we have our domain name, which is like dixie.edu. And then after that we have, so we got domain name, right? And then after we have a subdomain, like that. And a subdomain is going to be something on that server. Now, if I go to dixie.edu, that will go to a different place than going to mail.dixie.edu. And it's important to understand that the subdomain will go to a different location than the domain if you want it to, and you can just point them to different IP addresses. So www.dixie.edu can be different than mail.dixie.edu, right? And also can be different than just dixie.edu. And so all three of those can point to a different IP address if we wanted to. They don't have to go to the same. So each of those can all be different. But typically, if you have a www and just a normal domain name, they're going to point to the same. But again, you don't have to do that. That's not an absolute necessary thing. So let's go back here and look at this example here. And this kind of shows an example of how DNS works. We talked about it briefly, about how if you go out and you look for a domain name, it goes out first to a DNS server, and then will return that IP address back, and then you can go talk with the server. But really there's a bunch of steps that happen in between. First off, you type out example.com, and it's going to go out and it's going to look at the root server. Now there's only, there's not very many of these in the world, but what they do is they say, go look at the DNS server for all the .coms or something like that. And he'll tell you where those are. He'll come back. And so we have a TLD server now that'll go back and say, okay, now let's go look at the .com server. And we're going to return back the DNS server for the specific example.com. And so we'll return where the DNS server for example.com is, and then it'll go out to example.com's DNS server, and it will say, I've got an IP address for this domain name, send it back to here. It goes back to your computer. Your computer then knows where that server directly is, and then it returns the files. And so when you look at a URL like this, it's first going to go to the root server to find where the .edus are, and then it's going to go find where the domain name is, and then it's going to change that into an IP address that you can view on your computer. The interesting thing is with subdomains, these are another level of DNS if you want, and again, you can house that on your own DNS server, and it will look at those as well. And you can go deeper in subdomains. You can go multiple levels back if you do choose to do so. So we do have lots of different types of domain names out there. First off, we have the originals, right? A .com, .org, .net. We don't really hear int that much. .edu, .gov, .mil, different things like that. They've been around a long time. And really, .com is almost like real estate. Domain names can get really expensive. And but they also have other types with that. For example, they have country codes. So we could go look up, .cn for China or different things. And they have those. And they have another set that they released not long ago. We call these generic domain names. Most people aren't aware of these, but you can have like a apartments if you wanted to, or a Amazon. They probably own it and don't share that with people. Baseball or whatever. But all of these, there's thousands of these things, I think. There's a lot, hundreds anyways. But kind of cool if you want to branch out and get a different type of domain names. So you could have, we could go look up Dixie University, I think is one. Yeah, so we could have like Dixie.university if we wanted to, or different things. But sometimes they tend to be a little bit more expensive than a normal .com, things like that. But it does give you a little bit more flexibility on what domain names you would use in your business.